He gathered his strength, and for a brief second, he seemed to defy gravity as it took a quick step up the wall, and with Zero's help, pulled himself the rest of the way over the ledge. He caught his breath. There was no way he could have done that a few months ago. He noticed a large spot of blood on his wrist. It took him a moment to realize that it was Zero's blood. Zero had deep gashes in both hands. He had held on to the middle blade of the shovel, keeping it in place as Stanley climbed. Zero brought his hands to his mouth and sucked up his blood. One of the glass jars had broken in the sack. They decided to save the pieces. They might need to make some kind of knife or something. They rested briefly, then continued on up. It was a fairly easy climb the rest of the way. And when they reached the flat ground, Stanley looked up to see the sun, a fiery ball balancing on top of the big thumb. God was twirling a basketball. Soon they were walking in the long, thin shadow of the thumb. Chapter 37. "We're almost there," said Stanley. He could see the base of the mountain. Now that we're really almost there, it scared him. Big Thumb was his only hope. If there was no water, no refuge, then they'd have nothing, not even hope. There was no exact place where the flat land stopped and the mountain began. The ground got steeper and steeper, and then there was no doubt that they were heading up the mountain. Stanley could no longer see the Big Thumb. The slope of the mountain was in the way. It became too steep to go straight up. Instead, they had to zigzag back and forth, increasing their altitude by small increments every time they changed direction. Patches of weeds dotted the mountainside, and they walked from one patch to another, using the weeds as footholds. As they got higher, the weeds got thicker. Many had thorns, and they had to be careful while walking through them. Stanley would have liked to stop and rest, but he was afraid they'd never get started again. As long as Zero could keep going, he was going to keep going too. Besides, he knew they didn't have much daylight left. As the sky darkened, bugs began appearing above the weed patches. A swarm of gnats hovered around them, attracted by their sweat. Neither Stanley nor Zero had the strength to swat them away. "How you doing?" Stanley asked. Zero pointed the thumbs up. Then he said, "If a gnat lands on me, it's going to knock me over." Stanley gave him some more words to concentrate on. "B-U-G-S," he spelled. Zero concentrated hard and then said, "Boogs!" Stanley laughed, and a wide smile spread across Zero's sick and weary face as well. "Bugs," he said. "Good," said Stanley. "Remember, it's a short U if there's no E at the end of it. Okay, here's a hard one. How about this? L-U-N-C-H. L-un. Suddenly, Zero made a horrible wrenching noise as he doubled over and grabbed his stomach. His frail body shook violently and he threw up, emptying his stomach of all that sploosh. He leaned on his knees and took several deep breaths. Then he straightened up and continued going. The swarm of gnats stayed behind, preferring the contents of Zero's stomach to the sweat on the boy's face. Stanley didn't give many more words, thinking that he needed to save his strength. But about 10 or 15 minutes later, Zero said, "Lunch." As they climbed higher, the patches of weeds grew thicker, and they had to be very careful not to get their feet tangled in the thorny vines. And Stanley suddenly realized something. There hadn't been any weeds on the lake. "Weeds and bugs," he said. "There's got to be water around here somewhere. We must be getting close." A wide, clown-like smile spread across Zero's face. He flashed the thumbs up sign, then fell. He didn't get up. Stanley bent over him. "Come on, Zero," he urged. "We're getting close, man. Come on, Hector. Weeds and bugs, weeds and boogs." Stanley shook him. "I've already ordered your hot fudge sundae," he said. "They're making it right now." Zero said nothing. All right, we're going to leave it right there, guys, on that cliffhanger. Is Zero okay? Is he not okay? What's going to happen? I don't know. Well, I kind of know because I've read it a couple times. But if you haven't read it before, you don't know what's going to happen. So, tomorrow we'll pick up chapter 38. And, yeah, guys, stay safe. Talk to you tomorrow.